Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, TheRumpledOne, coming to you on Wednesday, July the 28th, the year 2021. Let's talk trading. How to analyze a chart, part 3 with Walmal. As you know, these videos are for educational purposes only. Your results may differ from mine and from Walmal. Walmal, this week we're talking about how to analyze a chart. So I thought you might want to give the boys and girls and non-binary traders the inner workings on how you analyze a chart.
Yeah, and I think that every trader probably analyzes it, in different ways. I think we all go and do the same thing, but we also all go and do things slightly different from each other, and the reason why is because the market, basically, the market's range bound to a certain extent. It's going to go and do what it's going to do, but it's going to do it within the banks of the river is what I like to go and say, and we just need to go and take advantage of that. So for instance, one of the things that I do in terms of banks of the river is that I know that, on the pound dollar, unless there's some really big anomaly, I'm not going to have a day that's going to be above 150 pips. I mean, are there days to do that? Sure, but they're so outside the scope of reality that it's just something that doesn't happen. So one of the very first things I do when I get up in the morning is I go open up and I look at my smart ranges and I try to find out, okay, how many pips has this day moved? And if you look at today, the smart range on the day is, it's over the, and now it may show differently on yours because I know I look at it differently than you do, slightly, but I only have 33 pips. Okay. That's my range for the day so far. And differently because I probably have a different broker than you, and then also differently because my percentile on it is 0%, and that may change slightly because you may, I only go out 20 candles on that, 20 days on that. I only like to look at basically the last month of data. And so that's I do that, and the reason why is because I look at it from the perspective that, the days, generally speaking, tend to go and match what they've been doing over the last month. So that's why I like to do that. However, I have another chart that sometimes I'll pull up, and that'll go out, with 1,000 days or some number like that, and it'll give me that overall number as well, which is good. But I like to go and look at it. Now you look at today, here it is. It is 8:05 Eastern time right now as we talk, okay? And we've only moved 33 pips for the entire day. That tells me that we've got an incredibly compressed day so far. And that gets me thinking, okay, and you say, well, what's this got to do with charts? Well, the thing is, something's got to move the market. And generally speaking, I don't know if I can remember a day that we closed with only 33 pips. Can you, TRO, remember a day we closed with only 33 pip range on the pound?
No.
No, it's not going to, it's most likely not going to happen. Now, we may have a day that only closes maybe, 50 pips. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, we had like a 57 pip day, but we're not going to have, so we know that there's probably 20 pips of movement either on the top side or the bottom side. So what do I do with that information? I then go and open up an hourly chart, and I look at where price is right now. Well, right now we're pretty close to the open. We're not at the open, but we're within a couple of pips of the open. So we're kind of actually in the middle of all this. So now I got to go and say, what are we likely going to do? We know that price likes to move away from the open. Right now, I'm sitting here with a green daily candle. We're slightly above it, a couple of pips above the open. It's right now, I'd say, well, there's a good chance we're going to go and move away from that and extend that 33 pips. That sort of gives me a little bit of a bias. And you say, well, how does that fit into the Walmal method? Well, if I'm sitting here, okay, and let's say I'm really close to, we're not anymore, but we're at 74, 75, something like that right now. But when we were up at 80, I would have said, there's a good chance that we're going to go and run this up a little bit higher. And I probably would have taken that first trade at the beginning of the hour. I wasn't trading at that time, but if I was trading at that time, I would have taken that first trade. But, I probably would have gotten beat on it. I would have made, I would have been up maybe a pip, maybe a pip and a half, something like that, and then it turned around went against me. So, that's part of trading. You just lose, but bias that I would have taken. Okay, and then it would have gotten a second opportunity. Would have maybe taken that second chance, and again it would have did the same thing where it only would have been up a pip or so. The difference is this time, because of what it did the first time, as soon as I got a pip, if it stopped moving, I would just punch out and take my pip, and then I'd probably, between the two trades and commission and everything else, I'd probably still be down by maybe a pip. You know, certainly not insurmountable, that's for sure. You know, so then I start saying, maybe it's just putting in that, you know, every day if you look at the daily candles for the pound, there's always, not always, but just about all the time, there's some type of wick on one side of the candle or the other. Not every day, but just about. Maybe all we did today was put in a wick. Maybe that's all we did today was put in that wick. And now I have to start saying, maybe it's going to go and, you know, run the other direction. So what do? I sit there and I wait and I wait and I wait for it to go and cross, you know, the cross that daily open again. Why? Because that's a line in the beginning of the day. I put that line on the chart. You know, yeah, I've got, you know, HL5, you know, that you went and built, but I like to draw that on my chart. That's a pretty big, important line. So I like to go and draw that on it because it becomes a mental acuity thing for me, you know, to know where that line is. And it helps me memorize it and know it without even having, you know, because sometimes we can have numbers on the chart and we ignore it. But for me anyway, and everybody's different, you know, I wait for that, you know, and wait to see when it's going to cross back the other way. So, you know, and so for instance, on my chart right now, you know, that line to be crossed is right where we're at right now, you know, 73.6. Okay, we're right at that open. Now I have to start thinking, well, maybe it's going to extend to the downward side. I need to go and have something that's going to go and tell me that. You know, now I look at the chart and I analyze the chart and say, is there anything that's going to cause me some trouble? You know, look left. Are there hourly candles that is going to cause some type of problem for me? You know, is there, and then I would start the other way. Is there a monthly candle that there's some type of line yet? No, we're not close to that. Is there a weekly that we're close to right now? No, I don't see that happening right now. But, you know, and you just go and step down all the way down until you find out, is there some type of inflection point that we have to worry about? Obviously, right now, it's just at the daily. Maybe this is the day where it is that oddball out, you know, and, you know, and you have to go and just say, hey, that just may well happen. Now, on my chart anyway, I got a pretty nice H4 candle, you know, to down. So I think the H4 candle closes this hour or next hour. I don't recall, to be honest with you. But, you know, that we got a 20 pip, you know, we're down 20 pips on the H4 candle. That gives me a pretty good idea that, hey, this has been, for a day that's only got 33 pips, that's a pretty strong indicator. And, you know, there is a wick on the bottom side. So that tells me that they are pulling away. So my point of saying all this, and you can notice I'm going and hedging back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, trying to come up with a bias here. And my overall opinion by looking at the charts and trying to analyze the charts is this is a strange day. Okay? And the reason why I say that is because of all these contradicting things that are going on, you know, and it's pip-wise, we're very early in the day. So today's a day that I'd sit there and may not even have a bias, but which means that when I get into a trade, I get in, I make my pips, I get out. And what I mean by make my pips, if I get in and I get in a trade and I'm up 2-3 pips and the market stops moving, I may kick myself later, but I'm just going to go out and take my 2 or 3 pips and just be happy with it because of what's happening right now in the market. For whatever reason, it's compressed. Now, I know that there's news coming up, you know, in about 15 minutes. That's rather significant. So maybe that's what everybody's waiting for, that news to come out, because we've got CPI coming out for the U.S., which is, you know, usually a pretty heavy mover for the U.S. Maybe that's why nobody knows where it's going to be. Everybody was very surprised yesterday with the news that came out on the housing numbers. You know, so maybe things are just, people just don't know what to do. You know, and so everybody's sort of holding on to their gunpowder and waiting for somebody else to make a decision for them.
Yeah, but you're not going to let somebody else make a decision for you, though, right?
No, of course not. But what I am going to do is, if they make a decision and moves the market and it goes and meets up with what my general contentions are, then yeah, I'm going to take advantage of that decision. And it's sort of like, I know that you like looking at pivot points, and I'm assuming you probably talked about pivot points in the previous two videos. I hate to say I didn't have a chance to watch them, but I'm sure you talked about that. Well, you think about it, those are decision points that other people made based on what the market has done previously. And people will go and either fade to pivot. In other words, if the pivot's below you and everything else lines up, they're going to go and take a trade to the south, or if it's pivot points above you, same thing. Or if you have an inside bar like we had the other day and we're breaking the top of that inside bar, well, that's, the reality is a lot of traders see that, and a lot of traders will go and jump in on that break. And so you can go and take advantage of what other people are doing, but just understand that's very, very finicky, and people will they'll get in just as quick as, or rather get out just as quick as they got in. So you need to be ready to say, okay, I got my pips, I got my money. Okay, it's time for me to cash out. So I'm not going to let somebody else make a decision for me, but at the same time, I'm going to take advantage of somebody else's decision. Or somebody else's, that's probably a better way, somebody else's, because let's face it, you or I or any one trader is not going to move the market unless you've got, you got a bankroll of $100 million that you're trying to move around, but the thing is, maybe take advantage of the mob mentality.
Right. Is there anything else you look at on the chart when you're doing when you analyze?
I'm paying very, very close attention to where the closes are for the opens and the closes, the highs and the lows of the hourly candles. And the reason why is because they, for whatever reason, they do carry a lot of weight in the market, and they cause hesitation and they cause breaks. So, for instance, if I'm sitting there and my method, whatever method I'm using, whether I'm using a DSR or a Walmal or whatever, and it's sitting at one of those lines, then I'm saying, okay, if it breaks that line, okay, that's a good place to enter, because this is a place where there was some indecision, and if for nothing else, there'll be some type of movement through that line. Maybe it's only a couple pips, but there'll be some type of movement through that line. So I always go and look at that. I tend to also, I like to go and, people talk about top down, the idea, start out at the biggest time frame and work your way down. I go through that at least once an hour, where I'll start out with the monthly chart just to remind myself, the weekly chart, the daily chart, H4, hourly, and work myself down. I generally trade off of mostly the M5, sometimes the M1, but I want to have a mental picture of what the overall vision of the whole market is at this moment in time. So I think that's the biggest thing for me doing in terms of analyzing the chart, knowing where those key levels are, and the reality is that I don't have pivot points on my chart. And if you notice, TRO, when we're trading together, I usually ask you, hey, where's the pivot point for today? Because I know you do track them. And the only reason why I do that is because if I'm in a trade and I know that traders look to go and get to a pivot point, I'm going to say, I'm in a trade, I'm up 5, 6, 7 pips, whatever it may be, but I'm within a pip or so of that pivot point. That tells me that's a mental mark of get out of the trade there, because there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to say, hey, I reached my goal, I faded to my goal, I'm getting out. And when everybody gets out, the market's going to go and just naturally retract the other way. So I guess that's another thing that I look at, is just to see that. I want to know, again, monthly, if we had a green month, if we had a red month. And I want to do that on all those big charts, because I want to know, generally speaking, where we are. And part of this also is, got to remember, just because here we are, what is it, the 28th of July, I believe, we got a green month, right? But the thing is, if you look at that monthly candle, it's basically, it's not a doji, because it's the body of that candle is probably about 30 or 40 pips. But look how far that ranged down there and came all the way back up. We're at the end of that month. We're at the end of this month. And the reality is that, we got a green month. I don't know what this thing's going to do. It obviously, for some reason, the market doesn't know what to do. And so I wouldn't take too much credence with the fact that it's a green month, because I think there's a lot of indecision that's out there right now, and we see that because we got a huge tail on the bottom end. We got a nice tail.
You know what? We're out of time. This is the Rumpled One over.